Dr. Marcus Hayes had learned to live with whispers. As one of the youngest neurosurgeons in the city and one of the few black doctors in the state's largest hospital, he knew every step he took was being watched, sometimes admired, often judged. But Marcus didn't care about the stares in the hallways or the murmurs about his age. His focus was always on his patients, especially the one in room 407. Eleanor Whitmore had been a household name long before she became his patient. As a billionaire philanthropist, she had built schools, funded medical research, and rescued entire communities from poverty. 6 months ago, she was in a car accident that left her in a deep coma. Other doctors said she wouldn't wake up, that her brain activity was too faint, her body too fragile. They treated her case as routine now, only checking vitals and charting the slow decline. But Marcus couldn't. Every evening after finishing his rounds, he made his way to room 407. The staff didn't understand why he spent so much time there. To them, Eleanor was another wealthy patient whose family had paid for privacy, comfort, and the best care money could buy. But to Marcus, she was far more. Years ago, when Marcus was just a medical student working 3 jobs to survive, an anonymous donor had paid his tuition in full. That one act had changed the trajectory of his life. He later discovered it was Eleanor Whitmore, a woman who believed brilliance shouldn't go wasted because of poverty or skin color. He never got to thank her in person. And now, here she was, lying silent in a hospital bed, her once vibrant life reduced to a faint heartbeat and the quiet hiss of a ventilator. Marcus adjusted her foredrip and began changing her bandages, careful with every movement. "I don't know if you can hear me," he said softly, "but it's Dr. Hayes. I want you to know I'm here. You gave me a chance when no one else would. I won't let you go without a fight." A nurse passing by peeked into the room. "You know she's not coming back, right?" she whispered. Marcus looked over his shoulder and gave a faint smile. "And if she does? What if she just needs someone to believe in her, the way she believed in me?" The nurse didn't respond. She didn't have to. Marcus turned back to Eleanor, his voice barely above a whisper as he read aloud from her favorite book. Outside, the city buzzed with life, but in room 407, time seemed to hold its breath. The rain fell in sheets that evening, drumming against the hospital windows as if trying to break in. Dr. Marcus Hayes walked briskly down the quiet hallway, his footsteps muffled against the polished floor. Room 407's door stood at the end, glowing faintly under the fluorescent lights. It had become his ritual to visit Eleanor Whitmore every evening after rounds, and tonight was no different. He entered softly, careful not to disturb the stillness. The room smelled faintly of antiseptic, mixed with the subtle scent of lavender from the flowers her niece left every week. Eleanor lay as she always did, her body small and fragile under the crisp white sheets, her face pale, but calm. The machines around her hummed steadily, a quiet orchestra keeping her tethered to life. Marcus rolled up his sleeves and began his task of changing her bandages. His movements were precise, almost reverent. As he peeled away the old gauze from her arm, he spoke softly, not even sure why he did it anymore. "You know, I had a tough surgery today," he murmured. "A little girl with a brain aneurysm. We caught it just in time. She's going to be okay. I like to think you'd be proud of that." He paused, glancing at her face for any flicker of response. Nothing, but he kept talking anyway. "You gave me a chance once. You didn't know me, but you believed I was worth investing in. I've spent every day since then trying to prove you right." As he reached for fresh gauze, Marcus noticed something so small he almost dismissed it. Eleanor's fingers twitched. He froze. Did I imagine that? He wondered, his eyes fixed on her hand. A moment later, it happened again. A slight, trembling movement, as if her body was trying to wake from a deep sleep. "Eleanor?" Marcus whispered, leaning closer. "Can you hear me?" There was no response. But then her hand shifted again, curling faintly as though reaching for something unseen. His heart pounded. He pressed the call button, summoning the nurse station. "Get in here," he said, urgently. She moved. By the time 2 nurses entered, Eleanor's hand had gone still. One of them checked her vitals and glanced at Marcus with a sympathetic frown. It was probably just a reflex, she said gently. You know, comatose patients sometimes do that. But Marcus shook his head. He'd seen reflexes before. This felt different. As the nurses left, he pulled a chair close to her bed and took her hand in his. If you're in there, Eleanor, don't stop fighting. I'll be here, every step of the way. Outside, the storm raged on. But in room 407, there was a quiet sense of hope Marcus couldn't explain. Marcus couldn't shake the image from his mind, Eleanor's fingers twitching ever so slightly as though trying to grasp something. All night, the moment replayed in his head. Was it just a muscle spasm like the nurses said? Or was it something more? The next morning, he arrived at the hospital earlier than usual. He spent extra time reviewing her scans, poring over her EEG readings for any sign of increased brain activity. But the charts told the same bleak story. Faint electrical signals, no significant improvement. Still, he refused to believe the movement had been meaningless. As he walked into room 407, Marcus carried with him a book of poetry he found on her nightstand, a worn leather volume with her name etched in gold on the cover. He settled into the chair by her bed and began reading softly. Hope is the thing with feathers, he recited, his voice gentle, that perches in the soul. Hours passed, and he alternated between reading, checking her vitals, and simply speaking to her like an old friend. He told her about his childhood in a cramped apartment, his late mother who worked 2 jobs to keep food on the table, and how he almost gave up on his dream of becoming a doctor until her scholarship changed his life. You saved me, Eleanor, he whispered, and I think you're still in there fighting. I'm not giving up on you. Later that afternoon, Dr. Langston, the hospital's chief of neurology, entered the room. He was an older man, respected but rigid in his thinking. Marcus, I heard about yesterday, he said, folding his arms. You're a fine surgeon, but don't let hope cloud your judgment. These patients, he glanced at Eleanor, they don't come back. With respect, sir, I disagree, Marcus replied calmly. She moved. I saw it, and I know what I felt. Langston sighed. Spasms happen. That doesn't mean she's conscious. Don't waste your time on false hope. Focus on patients we can actually save. But Marcus wouldn't back down. Hope isn't a waste of time. It's the reason we do what we do. As Langston left, shaking his head, Marcus turned back to Eleanor. He gently took her hand in his. If you can hear me, prove them wrong, he whispered. I'll be here every day until you do. And though the machines around her remained steady and silent, Marcus thought, just for a moment, that he felt the faintest pressure of her fingers tightening around his. The hospital was unusually quiet that evening. Marcus sat alone in room 407, the faint beeping of monitors filling the space as he read aloud from the poetry book. His voice had become softer over the weeks, as though speaking directly to Eleanor's subconscious. He had nearly finished a poem when something caught his attention, a soft sound, a whisper of breath that didn't match the rhythmic hum of the ventilator. Marcus froze. He leaned closer, his eyes narrowing on her face. Eleanor's eyelids fluttered once. Then again. Eleanor, he breathed, heart pounding. Her lips parted slightly, and her throat worked as if trying to form words. A weak, raspy sound escaped her mouth. Cuz, his breath caught in his chest. You're awake. Fumbling for the call button, Marcus summoned the nurses. Get Dr. Langston. Now, he shouted, unable to contain the tremor in his voice. Nurses rushed in, followed closely by Langston, whose expression shifted from skepticism to shock as he watched Eleanor's eyes slowly open. Where? She whispered faintly. You're in the hospital, Marcus said softly, kneeling beside her. You've been in a coma, but you're safe now. You fought your way back. Eleanor's gaze locked on his face, confusion giving way to recognition. Her cracked lips curved upward in the faintest smile. You stayed, yes, Marcus replied, tears pricking his eyes. I promised I would. Over the next few days, Eleanor grew stronger, her voice steadier with each passing hour. She asked for Marcus every time she woke, and he was always there, sitting by her bedside, updating her gently on how the world had gone on without her. One morning, as sunlight streamed through the blinds, she beckoned him closer. "Do you know why I chose you?" she asked softly. Marcus hesitated. "I only knew someone believed in me when no one else did. That was enough." Eleanor smiled, faintly. "When I was young, I met a doctor like you. Brilliant, kind, but dismissed because of the color of his skin. He saved my life. Years later, when I saw your application, I saw that same determination. I couldn't let it go to waste." Marcus's chest tightened. "You saved my future, and now I saved yours." Word of Eleanor's miraculous recovery spread through the hospital like wildfire. Doctors who had written her off now praised Marcus's persistence. Some even apologized for doubting him. But Marcus stayed humble, giving Eleanor all the credit. At a press conference a month later, Eleanor insisted on speaking. Cameras flashed as she sat in a wheelchair, her hands clasped firmly over Marcus's. "This man didn't just treat me," she said. "He believed in me when everyone else gave up. And now I intend to return the favor. I'm launching the Whitmore Hayes Foundation to support underprivileged medical students, starting with a scholarship in Dr. Marcus Hayes's name." The room erupted in applause. Marcus tried to protest, but Eleanor squeezed his hand. "This is your legacy, too," she whispered. Months later, Marcus stood on stage at the foundation's opening gala, looking out at hundreds of young students whose lives would be changed forever. Eleanor sat proudly in the front row, her strength fully returned. "Eleanor gave me a chance when no one else would," Marcus told the crowd. "And when she needed someone to fight for her, I stayed, because that's what she taught me: never give up on people." As applause filled the hall, Marcus met Eleanor's gaze and saw tears glistening in her eyes. She mouthed the words, "Thank you." He smiled back. "No," he whispered himself, "thank you." And in that moment, Marcus realized they hadn't just saved each other, they had built a legacy of hope that would outlive them both.